2023 was a great year for film. It opened with the very fun Megan, which set the tone, especially for genre fare, or at least some of it. It was the year of Barbenheimer and some shakeups in the big box office earners. And of course, there were a few smaller gems as well. But now it's that time of year again. Time to look ahead to what's next. These are my most anticipated movies of the year. Can you believe I've done 5 of these already? I really didn't think I'd get this far, especially with it still just as a hobby. But here we are. Very quickly before I start, I don't know all the movies coming out this year. Most of these are franchise films because that's all I know of so far. There will almost definitely be some smaller ones that I'll hear about later that will interest me more than a lot of these ones. Also, I do this instead of a best and worst of the year list because I haven't seen all the movies that would probably make it in. In the description, I've provided a link to a letterboxd list of what I have seen ranked, but screw it, I'll just do my top 10 real quick. Number 10, Barbie. Number 9, Anatomy of a Fall. Number 8, Killers of the Flower Moon. Number 7, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Number 6, John Wick Chapter 4. Number 5, The Holdovers. Number 4, Godzilla Minus One. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Number 2, The Boy and the Heron. And number 1, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I know in my last video I said that The Boy and the Heron was the new number 1, but I changed my mind. Across the Spider-Verse is the bigger achievement for animation. The Boy and the Heron isn't even the best Miyazaki. And I haven't seen enough movies from this year that I dislike to make a top 10 worst. But I guess we can go top 5. Disclaimer, most of these movies are just mediocre. I'd be shocked if there weren't way worse movies than these. Number 5, Five Nights at Freddy's. Number 4, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Number 3, Vacation Friends. Number 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And number 1 is the Netflix movie El Conde. I don't know if this is a controversial choice, but I did not like it. I mean, if you're gonna give us a concept this bizarre and borderline tasteless, at least have the decency to make it interesting. But on to the list, and we're going by last year's rules. This is not a top 10, it's top whatever I think is good enough for the list, which is now top 23. And at number 23, we've got Horizon, both part 1 and part 2. I admit this one's more on principle than by my own personal interest. Horizon is a Western film with Kevin Costner that's being split into 2 parts, with both releasing in the summer. And I think it's great that a major studio is turning what's probably an original idea, and for a Western to boot, into a big 2-part summer blockbuster. Probably because of Kevin Costner's success with Yellowstone, which I've caught up on this year. It's pretty good. Hopefully it can tap into that fanbase to become a hit despite not fitting into what most studios would consider a summer movie. Maybe it'll be this year's Oppenheimer. Number 22 is Terrifier 3, probably one that I'm even less likely to want to see by the time it comes out. The follow-up to the indie horror sequel that attracted major mainstream attention on a wave of shock value. I like Terrifier 2, or at the very least I like Garth the Clown, but I just don't know if I could take much more. At first I thought I liked it because it was more a slasher film than torture porn, though it did come dangerously close. Now I realize this was just an exception to my disinterest in torture porn, and a hardcore one. Having seen it, I'm still surprised I didn't hate it. There were many parts that I did hate. I'm pretty sure they're going to try to one-up the bedroom scene in the second one, and I really hope they don't. I don't need to see whatever that is. But whatever, this time it moves from its usual Halloween setting to Christmas time. It has a higher budget and is supposed to be similar in tone to the first one. I guess that means it'll be darker and more nihilistic. And the budget probably means more violence. Great. We'll see what happens there. Number 21 is Gladiator 2, the long-awaited sequel to the Best Picture Oscar-winning movie that we didn't know we needed a sequel to. This might just be another cash grab, but it might not. It does have Ridley Scott returning to direct and has Denzel Washington in the cast. I don't think they would sign on to something too cynical. I might have to see a trailer or something to see if I actually do care, but if it's a worthy sequel, then I'd be interested. Number 20 is Civil War. I almost left this one off, but realized I put it on my letterboxd watch list after seeing the trailer, so I should probably put it here too. It's from A24 and Alex Garland, director of Ex Machina and Annihilation. It's about a future America that's even more divided than we are now. The states of California and Texas have formed an alliance to overthrow the government. How those 2 states ended up working together is unknown. This is also supposed to be the most expensive A24 film to date. I liked Ex Machina and Annihilation, never saw Devs or Men, so I'm excited to see what he does here. Number 19 is Beetlejuice 2, the long-awaited sequel to the movie that, well, we knew we wanted a sequel more than we did Gladiator. This movie definitely had sequel potential. This will have Tim Burton returning to direct, and some names on the cast lists are Catherine O'Hara, Jenna Ortega, makes sense that she'd be there, Winona Ryder, Willem Dafoe, and of course Michael Keaton. This one may or may not be a cash grab, but it would be nice to see Michael Keaton return as Beetlejuice. The return of his Batman in The Flash helped to make that movie not terrible. Let's see what he and everybody else here can do. At number 18, we've got Inside Out 2, the long-awaited sequel to the original Pixar film. No, Pixar isn't what it used to be, but the first Inside Out was still great. This makes the list because of that goodwill. even if I end up not even seeing it. I mean, I grew up with Toy Story, but it still took me over a year to get around to watching Lightyear. It's about an older Riley who is now dealing with new emotions, like anxiety, for example, the only example they're telling us about, because kids never get anxious until they reach a certain age. Okay, I know, it's puberty or something. But whatever, I don't think this one's going to be as good as the original, but I could be wrong. It would be interesting to see where they go from here. Up next is number 17, which is Alien Romulus. Oh good, another horror reboot. But wait, they have a good director, Fede Alvarez, the director of the Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe. I haven't seen his third film, The Girl in the Spiderweb, but I really like Don't Breathe and I probably really liked Evil Dead. I've seen it a long time ago and still much prefer the comedic films and series, but I remember being pretty disturbed by it. The point is, seeing his name convinced me to put it here. Also, the first two Aliens are masterpieces in their own genres, and I've liked even the bad sequels. It's probably one of the few long-running horror franchises where even the worst one is still a 3-star in my book. I'm not counting the Alien vs. Predator movies. Among other smaller reasons, it's because I haven't seen the first one since I was a kid and never saw the sequel at all. Either way, if Alvarez brings what made his first movies good, then this could continue that streak of relative consistency for me. At number 16, we have The Fall Guy, a new action movie starring Ryan Gosling as a stunt driver who gets pulled into a crime story. Something about that sounds familiar. No, it's not that. It's based on some show from the 80s that I've never heard of, which is apparently about stunt drivers who moonlight as bounty hunters. So I guess this is like a prequel or something, an origin story. But it's from director David Leitch, who, thanks to the fact that I credit directors in my reviews unless the movie's terrible or something, I recognized as the man behind Bullet Train. And that was a lot of fun. I really like the idea of this being something along the lines of that, but with Ryan Gosling and more car stunts. Or it might be like his other action movies, but those were also enjoyable. Although this probably wouldn't be on the list if it wasn't for Bullet Train. This might be like the version of Drive that the advertising said it would be. At number 15 is Drive Away Dolls, a crime comedy from Ethan Coen, featuring the talent of Pedro Pascal and Matt Damon in supporting roles for some actors who I don't know if I should feel bad for not recognizing the names. It's about a lesbian couple who go on a cross-country vacation but accidentally end up with something that a lot of criminals really want. It gets on the list because of, well, pretty much the first thing I said about it. It's a crime comedy from Ethan Coen. Most of the Coen brothers' best movies fall into this genre. And hopefully, half of that duo could produce that magic again. I mean, his brother was able to make the tragedy of Macbeth by himself. Hopefully Ethan could do similar things with what the Coen brothers do best. Up next we got number 14, which is Joker, Folie à Deux. Oh, okay, come back. I swear I'm not an incel. I admit the first Joker wasn't perfect. Maybe it wasn't as deep as it thought it was. But it was unlike any other comic book movie out there. And of course, Joaquin Phoenix deserves that award. And this one might be even more unlike any other comic book movie. This time it's a musical, about how his romance with Harley Quinn started, who is played by Lady Gaga. So now we have an interlap between the happy musical and Lady Gaga fans, and the cretins you block on the internet. Glad to see they're taking a bizarre swing with a genre that's recently become known for its cynicism. That's what they did last time, and it mostly worked then. And if this lives up to its potential, it can work now. Can't wait to see Joker 3, which will take inspiration from Un Chien Andalou or something. Okay, this is a joke, but that could actually be interesting. And at number 13, it's Ballerina, a spin-off of a character from the John Wick movies, played by Ana de Armas. Who would have guessed that one small R-rated action movie where a guy tries to avenge his dog would turn into the cultural phenomenon it is now? And now it's getting its first movie spin-off. The Continental was a TV spin-off. Kind of inspiring. This might be turning into the next cinematic universe. I kinda hope it doesn't. Or at least that it doesn't get to the Marvel level. I don't want to see this kind of thing get oversaturated. I think even general audiences are getting sick of Marvel at this point. Then again, people have been saying that for years and it still hasn't died yet. I remember when Age of Ultron made slightly less than expected and people thought Marvel was losing popularity. But whatever, it should still be great to see the kind of violent action the franchise is known for, just with a different face doing it. Hell yeah. Speaking of cinematic universes that are getting bigger but hopefully not too big, number 12 is Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. The MonsterVerse is probably the ideal cinematic universe, at least in terms of releases so far. A steady stream of installments, but not more than one movie a year. Or at least not yet. There are only so many cities to destroy here. Coming hot off the universally acclaimed Godzilla -1 and the series Monarch Legacy of Monsters. So it looks like it might have a lot to live up to. It will probably be overshadowed by -1. I haven't seen Monarch, but based on what I heard about it, it may also overshadow it to a far lesser degree with its human drama. But really, why would anybody expect something on par with -1? You know, one of the best monster movies in a long time. This one's supposed to be less serious. In the trailer you see more weird stuff like a baby Kong and the adult Kong having some sort of gauntlet, and Godzilla appears to be going into some pink Super Saiyan form. I admit I prefer the more serious, or at least semi-serious stuff. Actually, maybe this can fall into the semi-serious side. It's different, but I don't think I see anything too silly in here. But whatever, it's the more outrageous, action-heavy, less political American brother of -1. And it looks fun, even though it will undeniably be compared negatively to that masterwork.
For this one magical night, it's about getting another chance to do more, to give more, to love more.
Because that's what New Year's is all about.
That in a good party. Nothing beats New York on New Year's Eve.
At number 11 is Argylle, from Matthew Vaughn, the director of the Kingsman movies, which I love, and it looks like it's going to be a similar style. It's about a spy novel writer played by Bryce Dallas Howard who is swept up in a tale of real-world espionage because his stories are somehow all coming true and a lot of people want her knowledge. Like Kingsman, but with a supernatural meta twist. Hopefully Vaughn can play to his strengths and make this live up to its promise. And what do you know, we're at the top 10. Now things get serious. Or not. Anyway, number 10 is A Quiet Place Day 1. A prequel starring Lupita Nyong'o about the beginning of the invasion that led to the apocalyptic landscape seen in one of the most unique horror franchises in some time. Basically like the longer version of the flashback at the beginning of part 2. You know what's even more interesting about post-apocalyptic movies? Movies about how the world ends. How we got to that place, where something comes to destroy us and actually fucks things up. But really it's more for the A Quiet Place franchise's style. I much prefer the first one for using the audio sparingly to increase the tension. The sequel did that too, but not nearly as much. There was a lot more actual talking. This one might go more to the second one style, seeing as how the characters are pretty much just finding out how the creatures work. But part 2 was still great. I'd still be really into seeing another movie like that. My ideal version of this would split the difference between these two. Like they need to realize to stay quiet, but in like the climax or something, it's like the original. Also, Lupita Nyong'o has proven to be a good scream queen with Us and maybe to a lesser extent the less well-known Little Monsters. And with the director of Pig behind the camera, this has the potential to be another worthy addition to the franchise. And that brings us to number 9, Lisa Frankenstein, a new horror comedy from Diablo Cody, the writer of the cult hit Jennifer's Body. Also Juno, but something tells me this isn't going to be like Juno. It's about a high school student who gets a boyfriend, who she made in the lab Frankenstein style. And it looks like some sort of dark romance comedy where they'll end up having to do some bad things together. It'll probably be a feminist reimagining of the Frankenstein concept, judging by what Jennifer's Body was. Hey, that sounds familiar. Haven't seen that one, by the way, although I plan to by the time this video comes out. But obviously this one looks very different. As a fan of horror comedies and Jennifer's Body, I'm excited to see this. Number 8, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The Planet of the Apes prequel trilogy ended on a high note a few years ago. Then Disney bought Fox. And of course they're not going to pass up on continuing another franchise. Should this be made? I don't know, I guess there are probably more interesting stories that happened after War of the Planet of the Apes. It's not like that ending was final enough to completely discount the possibility of another sequel. It doesn't look like they're undoing anything. The effects still look as great as the others. The trailer looks like it does a decent job of recapturing the feel of the previous ones. I really like the original trilogy and I wouldn't mind seeing more. I actually think it could be interesting seeing more of the history behind this world. Let's see where the Planet of the Apes is now that... no spoilers. At number 7, we've got Nosferatu, a remake of the vampire classic done by Robert Eggers, director of The Witch and The Lighthouse. He's developed a niche for himself making historical films that are accurate to the time period down to the dialogue used. And he's proven himself to be good at that niche, especially for horror. He's kind of the perfect director for a remake like this. He knows how to capture that old-timey gothic feel. And he's got a great cast with Nicholas Hoult, past collaborator Willem Dafoe, and of course Bill Skarsgård as the vampire. This is shaping up to really capture the story. And number 6 is Maxine, something which also made last year's list at, also number 6. Anyway, it's the conclusion to the A24 horror trilogy starting with 2022's X and Pearl. And for this part, I guess I'll just play what I said about it last year. But anyway, not much is known about this movie except that it will focus on Mia Goth's character in X who wasn't Pearl, and it takes place in the 80s. And the song in the teaser trailer is giving me the feeling that this will also be about porn. X and Pearl were two of my favorite movies of 2022. Mia Goth's performance was excellent, especially in Pearl. Now she gets to carry yet another movie in that universe from the same director. This should be good. Sign me up. I want to see what happens to Maxine after X. At number 5, we have Untitled Fort film directed by Jordan Peele. Okay, while I was making this video, it moved to 2025. I'm in too deep to alter the numbers of what came before. Number 4 is Deadpool 3. You know the strikes had impact when now there's only one Marvel Cinematic Universe movie this year. Yeah, there used to be another Captain America and the Thunderbolts or something, but they got delayed to 2025 because of the strikes. But don't worry, if you want your Marvel fix more than once, you still got Sony putting out 3 more mediocre movies about Venom and some second-rate Spider-Man villains.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
But all we really got now is this. Although, honestly, it's the only one of these that I would have been willing to put onto this list without seeing a trailer. It's the first entry of Deadpool into the Disney Marvel Universe, and the first R-rated movie in that universe, alongside of Echo on Disney+, their first TVMA series. Yeah, Marvel's going into a more mature direction. Maybe not so much with Deadpool. But whatever, more Deadpool. And he has a special guest, the return of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. After he got the perfect ending in Logan, something that deserves to stay that way more than Planet of the Apes does. Even Hugh Jackman said he couldn't return after that.
The question is, why in the world Garfield 3?
Can this be just between us?
Yes.
Drugs cost money.
But of course it's Disney. But counterpoint, it's Deadpool, so it might not be as bad. I mean, if he appeared in Spider-Man No Way Home, that would be pretty terrible. Here, I have a feeling they might justify it with the right combination of meta storyline, humor, and just how these characters are supposedly together a lot in the comics. And it would also be fun to see that trademark Deadpool humor in action again. At number 3, we've got Mickey 17, the new English language movie from Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite, Snowpiercer, The Host, and a bunch of other acclaimed stuff. It is unknown what the movie is about, but it's a futuristic-looking sci-fi movie with Mark Ruffalo, Robert Pattinson, and Toni Collette. There's a lot of talent behind this, so let's see if this will live up to Bong Joon-ho's best work. At number 2, it's Furiosa, a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road about Charlize Theron's iconic character, but a younger version played by Anya Taylor-Joy. It also stars Chris Hemsworth, and of course, the person who made Fury Road what it is, George Miller, is directing again. This one is apparently not going to have as many practical effects since the shoot for Fury Road was very dangerous, but Miller still has his eye for almost non-stop action, and that should be more than enough to make this one of the more entertaining action movies of the year. And finally, we get to number 1, the first number 1 movie in 2 years to not be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. See, that was supposed to come out in 2022, but didn't, so that became number 1 2 years in a row. But it was finally released, so on to something different now. And our new number 1 is Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. What can I say? Across the Spider-Verse was my favorite movie of the year, and it ended on a cliffhanger. Of course this is going to be number 1 again. These are some of the best superhero movies ever made, and their animation style was a game changer for Hollywood. I can't wait to see how it all ends. It doesn't have an official date yet, and things might get complicated with how the crew was treated during part 2. One of the few things I didn't like about that movie. There is a really good chance that this won't actually be released this year. But let's hope this one gets a release date soon. 4 years of having Spider-Man at number 1 is just too much. Well, that's my list. What are you guys interested in? Let me know in the comments, and have a great year.